Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett and these are the headlines.
It's absolutely true that we've had some tough by-election results, and they've been, I think, a reflection of a lot of things.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson claims voters decided against his party over the cost of living crisis, not his actions, after two by-election defeats. Ukrainian forces will retreat from the key Donbas city of Severodonetsk. The Afghan Taliban promises the transparent distribution of international aid relief after the earthquake that killed over 1,000 and left thousands more homeless. And British retail sales by volume dropped in May as soaring inflation causes consumers to limit spending, especially on food. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's leadership is under renewed pressure after two damaging by-election defeats. Tory co-chairman Oliver Dowden has resigned after the Conservatives lost the constituency votes, one to the Labour Party, the other to the Liberal Democrats. Writing a letter to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Oliver Dowden said that Tory supporters are distressed and disappointed. He says the party can't carry on with business as usual and says someone will have to take responsibility. Well, Boris Johnson is currently in Kigali for the Commonwealth summit.
It's absolutely true that we've had some tough by-election results, and they've been, I think, a reflection of a lot of things, but we've got to recognise that voters are going through a tough time at the moment, and I think that as a government, I've got to listen to what people are saying, and in particular to the difficulties people are facing over the cost of living, which is, I think, for most people the number one issue. And there, what we're doing is as much as we can to help people. £1,200 for the 8 million most vulnerable households, help for everybody with the cost of heating, trying to cut taxes where we can. But what I can say to people is we will get through this, we will get through it well, but clearly we've got to listen to these results.
We're being joined now by London correspondent Sally Patterson. Sally, talk us through those results first. Just how bad was it for the Conservatives in those two seats of Tiverton and Honiton and Wakefield?
Well, Ollie, this is pretty unheard of, to have two major defeats by the ruling party in by-elections. This has basically never happened. Now, we had both results come in very early this morning, local time. And what's quite striking is that these are two very different constituencies in two very different parts of the country, but we've seen the Conservatives defeated in both. Now, very down south in the southwest, we have Tiverton and Honiton, where we saw a 30% swing to the Liberal Democrats from the Conservatives, with the Liberal Democrats gaining 22,000 seats. Now, this is historic, with their leader, Sir Ed Davey, coming out and celebrating their victory. And he said, I think the people of Tiverton and Honiton have spoken for the British people. And I think they've said loud and clear that Boris Johnson must go. Now, all the way up in the north of the country, in Wakefield, we've seen a very different constituency also boot out the ruling party. This is less surprising because Labour, the opposition Labour Party, actually held this seat before the 2019 elections, under which the Conservative Party took it. But now Labour have gone and taken it back. they've won by about 5,000 votes, which is not as huge as we saw in the south, but again, a pretty good defeat. And the leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer, said this is the people's way of showing that they no longer have confidence in the Prime Minister.
Well, Sally, when it comes to the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson's leadership, he survived that confidence vote earlier this month, but does that mean he's safe?
Well, I think he's very much not safe yet. Whilst we haven't seen a huge number of resignations as we might have thought, what we have seen is very early this morning local time, we saw the Conservative Party co-chair, Oliver Dowden, hand in his resignation. As you said, he sent a letter to the Prime Minister saying that things cannot carry on as normal, business as usual, and things needed to change. We have seen from several members of the cabinet an acceptance that actually they do need to listen to what the people are saying. They can't just carry on as if nothing has happened. And they said that they are standing up and taking notice. However, what's quite striking is that the Prime Minister was not on the doorstep during the elections. He was not going around showing his face to the local constituents. And interestingly, he's not there today. As you say, he's thousands of miles away in Rwanda at a Commonwealth gathering. And so I don't think he's on safe ground yet. What we've also heard is that there might be changes to the Parliament rules, which mean that having survived a vote of no confidence just earlier this month, narrowly, but he did survive it, the rules may actually change to allow MPs to bring another vote of confidence against the Prime Minister sooner than a year away, which is what the rules currently say. So I think there are many, many Conservative MPs across the country today who are watching their own seats slightly nervously and wondering if the Prime Minister is the person who is going to lead their party into the next election.
Thanks, Sally. All eyes then on those Conservative MPs, those cabinet ministers, and crucially, as Sally says, the Backbench 1922 committee, which is reportedly considering changing its rules so a leadership challenge could happen sooner than within a year. Workers at London's Heathrow Airport have voted to strike over pay as surging inflation erodes salaries and sparks growing industrial unrest. Almost 700 workers are set to strike during the British summer holidays, when the demand from travellers would be expected to be at its peak. British Airways says it's offered a 10% one-off payment, which was accepted by the majority of staff. Unions say they agreed to a 10% pay cut last year when the British Airways and the industry was suffering vast losses due to the pandemic, and the airline slashed thousands of jobs. They now want a permanent salary uplift rather than a one-off payment.
So increasing pay might help. The problem is, of course, that airlines and airports alike have found themselves in 2 years of losses and don't have that much financial muscle at the moment either to simply increase pay across the board. So that is a real issue. The industry needs to make it more attractive for people to work at airports so they can actually go back to delivering the service that they're meant to be delivering to passengers.
Now, although strike dates are yet to be announced, unions have warned that there will be a summer of industrial action as the cost of living worsens. UK inflation hit a 40-year high at 9.1% in May. The Bank of England says it could get as high as 11% by the end of this year. Kiev says it's pulling its forces back from Severodonetsk. Russia recently shifted its focus to the East Ukrainian city with the aim of taking control of larger parts of the region. Meanwhile, the governor of Donetsk says nowhere in the region is safe.
There is no place, no town in Donetsk region where it would be safe. Taking into consideration that I have intelligence data and I understand which direction is dangerous, I have deliberately mentioned Slavyansk and Kramatorsk because it will be the direction where there will be enemy movement. The enemy is shelling constantly water pipes and electricity lines. The communal services and energy workers are constantly working to renew it. On the territory controlled by Ukraine, electricity and water are absent in 132 towns and villages. In total, the condition is the same in 306 towns and villages, including territories that we do not control.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia is targeting the country's educational institutions.
You are now in one of the greatest universities. But this is one university. It is excellent, but one. Imagine the 2,000 destroyed educational institutions. How many people are there? And how many lives are there? 2,000. Who do you need to be to shell the university, the school, the kindergarten with artillery?
5 months have passed since the war began, and Kiev has been holding back the Russian offensive as best it can with the help of Western aid and weapons. The US has now announced it's sending another $450 million worth of weapons to Ukraine.
The United States announced another additional $450 million worth of security assistance to Ukraine as part of our commitment to help Ukraine defend its democracy in the face of unprovoked Russian aggression. This package contains weapons and equipment, including new high-mobility artillery rocket systems, tens of thousands of additional rounds of ammunition for the artillery systems that have already been provided as well, and patrol boats to help Ukraine defend its coast and its waterways.
An exhibition called The War Is Not Over Yet has opened in a park in Kiev. It displays photos and testimonies of journalists who were victims of the Russian invasion.
The war in Ukraine has entered its 5th month. Citizens have lost their lives. Soldiers have lost their lives, and so have journalists. This war has claimed lives of thousands of people.
We want to say in our speech that the war continues. The war is not over, and this is the war in which our citizens are dying, in which Ukrainian and foreign journalists are dying. That is why we ask the foreign media to tell the truth about this war and continue to tell the world about Russia's crimes in our country.
While Ukraine still continues to battle this war, its citizens have organized an exhibition as a reminder to the world that the war is not over yet.
Because it's already 4 months, it's normal that a lot of people lost interest and we saw a lot of events in different countries, but it's still very important to know it's the biggest invasion world saw from the Second World.
The International Advocacy Group says that 8 reporters have been killed and 16 more injured since the start of Russia's invasion. And they continue to face dangers every day. The exhibition in Ukrainian capital displays portraits of reporters and media workers who have become victims of the conflict. And this display also shows the resoluteness of Ukrainians who continue to muster on as their nation faces the wrath of Russian onslaught. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The war in Ukraine has triggered an energy crisis across Europe, where countries are looking at filling up their gas storage facilities as supply from Russia continues to dwindle. France has set a new deadline for its plans. Germany has triggered an energy alarm.
Russian gas is still flowing down pipelines to Germany, but at a dwindling rate. Now Berlin is triggering the second phase or alarm stage of a 3-step emergency plan. Thursday's move could allow utilities to pass on high prices to industry and households, helping to lower demand, though Germany says that clause isn't being activated yet. It's an escalation from phase 1, which mainly involved stricter monitoring of gas flows. The alarm comes after Russian energy giant Gazprom last week cut flows via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. In a statement, German Economy Minister Robert Habeck called the cut in supplies an economic attack. Russia denies any such intent, It blamed delays in the return of a critical turbine used in the pipeline, which is currently being serviced in Canada. European officials have dismissed that as an excuse. Now Germany's mighty manufacturers are contemplating painful cuts to output to conserve gas. Some may also have to switch to more polluting forms of energy, something once considered unthinkable. The EU has already signalled it will have to temporarily turn to coal to stave off energy shortages. Phase 3 of Germany's emergency plan would see state intervention in energy markets. That point hasn't come yet, but Thursday's news brought it one step closer.
The Commonwealth Leaders Summit is underway in Kigali. Prince Charles is there representing the Queen, along with the Duchess of Cornwall.
The Commonwealth contains within it countries that have had constitutional relationships with my family, some that continue to do so, and increasingly those that have had none. I want to say clearly, as I have said before, that each member's constitutional arrangement, as republic or monarchy, is purely a matter for each member country to decide. The benefit of long life brings me the experience that arrangements such as these can change calmly and without rancour. But as I said in Barbados last November, we should never forget the things which do not change: the close and trusted partnership between Commonwealth members, our common values and shared goals, and perhaps most importantly, the strong and enduring connections between the peoples of the Commonwealth which strengthen us all.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is there too. He's expected to address the media shortly at the Heads of Government meeting. Many of his questions are likely to focus, though, on his leadership and speculation about his future. On the actual agenda for the summit, sustainability, youth and the history and values of the Commonwealth. Prince Charles and Boris Johnson will also hold closed-door talks. There is speculation about whether those talks might include the UK government's controversial Rwanda asylum plan and Prince Charles's reported criticism of it. However, a palace spokesperson says the prince is politically neutral, and Downing Street says it's unlikely the topic will be raised. Toyota is recalling 2,700 of its first mass-produced electric vehicles for the global market because of a risk the wheels could come loose. The world's largest automaker by sales submitted the recall of the BZ4X SUVs to Japan's Transport Ministry. It comes less than 2 months after Toyota, a relative newcomer to the EV market, rolled out the electric SUV, the BZ4X, to the domestic market. Toyota's unit that offers leases on the vehicle, Kinto, has cancelled promotional test drive events planned in 3 Japanese cities. Subaru is also globally recalling about 2,600 units of the Solterra, which is its first all-electric vehicle jointly developed with Toyota, and that's for the same reason. Japan's safety regulator says sharp turns and sudden braking could cause a hub bolt to loosen, raising the risk of a wheel coming off the vehicle. It said it was not aware of any accidents caused by the defect, but advised drivers to stop using the vehicle until a more permanent repair measure is in place. None of the cars recalled in Japan has actually been delivered to customers, as they've been meant for test drives and display purposes. Next to those rumours that the Pope might soon resign because of his deteriorating health, Brazilian bishops say the pontiff intends to continue in his role as head of the Catholic Church for as long as God allows it. According to reports, Pope Francis has said that resigning never crossed his mind. Archbishop of Porto-Velho insisted that despite of the challenges, the Pope will not step down. Earlier in June, one of the Pope's cardinal advisors said that the resignation rumours amounted to nothing more than fake news. Pope Francis did cancel a recent papal visit citing knee pain, and that set the rumours running. Now, have you ever bought anything made in space? Probably not. It might seem out of this world, but it could soon be a reality.
In Cardiff, preparations for the first satellite launch from the United Kingdom are coming along well. And it's no ordinary launch. This would be the launch of a space factory. Yes, you heard that right. A space forge to make lighter, stronger metal alloys that apparently cannot be made on Earth. And the not-so-secret ingredient here, it is called the microgravity. The claim is that it can help make better, more efficient semiconductors.
Probably within the next maybe 5, certainly 10 years, something you interact with on a daily basis will have a component made in space, whether it's the national grid that you get your power to your house from, or maybe it's in the train that you're traveling on.
We have been using satellite services, but now you could soon have tangible products made in space? Well, seems like it. These products made in space will then be brought back to Earth, which is also likely to help boost the local economy. A Virgin Orbit Boeing 747 will carry a 21-meter-long rocket, which will be launched sometime later this summer at 35,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean station. The Space Forge is expected to produce metal in commercial quantities, creating not just metals and alloys, but also forging new job opportunities.
We're looking at 150 direct jobs just from Spaceport alone, and that's already happening. But we're looking at another about 240 in the supply chain, ancillary facilities, and activity that will be happening to support launch over the years. The new facilities we're building will house lots of different companies that are already signing up to locate here and do lots of different activities in the space industry.
Bureau Report, WION World is One.
A flower meadow display around the Tower of London has finally bloomed. It was meant to mark Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee weekend, but nature doesn't always stick to schedule. That is all we have time for today. I'll leave you with those pictures. Thanks for being with us. I'm Ollie Barrett. See you next week.
Usually they take 8 to 9 weeks to bloom, so that would have taken us perfectly up to the Platinum Jubilee weekend. But yes, April was very dry, very cold. There was more frost in April than there was in February.
To have a legacy that's not just a show of flowers, the flowers are wonderful, but it's to have something underlying that, which is biodiversity, wildlife, which is always under threat.
This is right, Arab.